how does storytelling, you think, contribute to building community?
Well, since we're talking about Africa, let's have the real conversation, right? Which is we're the originators of storytelling,
Yes.
right? Our culture, our continents, our traditions have not always been codified in the Western acceptance of documentation, right? We are a collective culture that has always been able to pass on the pride and the success of our culture through the way that we tell stories, and not just verbally, but through what we wear, through how we show up, through what we do with music, through what we do with food. All of that is storytelling. And so I think that the more important part of your question is, what is the way in which two things happen? The first of those is the continent is seen at a place where people come to learn how to be better humans back where they came from. Because the origination of what happens on that continent is what the rest of the world needs to be successful. That sits there, right? Storytelling is one of those things. But the other piece is to accept that the stories now are sitting in many different parts of the world because of what happened with the diaspora. Right. And how do we empower everybody who is where they are to bring that forward? And then I happen to have the privilege of sitting as a steward of this Black media brand called Essence, one of the largest ones in the globe. And I not only run Essence, but I also run Afropunk, I run BeautyCon, and we have a studio. And so I feel very compelled to ensure that there's reciprocity in the way that the diaspora is represented in all four of those platforms, so that the story of us functioning from a place of strength gets into the hands of everybody, not the hands of everybody Black, the hands of everybody.
Very good point. Now, you talked about the diaspora there.
I did.
And I wanted to touch on a bit about that. Essence has deep roots, of course, here in the US, but it's also making strides on the continent, right? So what exactly are you doing, and what are your hopes to reach out, to connect with the diaspora?
Yeah, so I think the Essence story by itself is a diaspora story, and then I'll give you more detail, right? So Essence is 50 years old, turned 50 years old in 2020. The story of Essence being founded in the US was about uplifting Black women, founded by 4 Black men. However, as that magazine grew, it actually was doing things to engage on the continent, to visit different countries, so that through the lens of beauty and fashion and other ways, it wasn't just the point of view of what those who had landed in the US had, it was also what is going on the continent. That's always been a part of Essence. The second part that's important to understand is that when Essence went into white ownership, so Essence was founded Black, US Black, was bought by Time Inc., was there for 2 decades, and malnourished severely. Seriously. But what took place was a Liberian man who had started a business called Shea Moisture that was creating an economic boom in Ghana with the women that were putting together what became the products. And he started selling soap on the streets of Harlem 25 years ago, sold his business to Unilever, and the money that he got is what allowed Essence to go back into Black ownership. Right? So then it goes back into Black ownership, but you have somebody who is a representative of a broader set of the diaspora and a Liberian owner. He calls and asks me to come and participate in helping to shepherd it through its next phase as a Kenyan. And then we start to look at what are all the things within the whole portfolio. So now I can tell you that in 2019, we did a full circle festival where we went to Ghana. It was the year of return. We took 100 people from the US to Ghana, had them there for about a week and a half to be able to have the experience.
So can you tell us about the economic impact of sports in Botswana?
Wow, that's a big story.
I know.
The economic impact of sport in Botswana is massive and growing. I can always take this to scale to the continent.
Correct.
Massive and growing, and everybody needs to pay attention. There's a simple reason for it. One is, besides the fact that we Africans can dance, we can play.
Exactly.
2 is, we're the youngest continent. The demographics in Botswana, as is the situation in Africa, speak to youthfulness. There are very many young people. The youngest continent in the world, the fastest growing continent in the world, and therefore, just out of sheer logic, the one that's going to present the longest period of time in the world with the most young people. And sport and young people speak to one another. Because of our level of development, which is relatively low compared to other parts of the world, the opportunities that present themselves in terms of development of infrastructure, development of road networks, airports, rail stations, stadia, courts, tracks, the development of the human capital to support this, the development of the physiological and physiotherapeutic capacities, and medicine, the development of media, and the tourism is unparalleled. So the opportunities are huge. So that's why it's going to grow so much. And in recent times, particularly with advanced technological improvements, including teleco and connectivity, young people in Africa and in Botswana possess smartphones. They are the fastest growing possessors or owners of smartphones in the world. So reaching them, massive. A whooping 1.3 billion Africans. And the opportunities there, the potential for business and economic growth, unparalleled.
It was to hear the minister from the DRC yesterday announce that his country has allocated land for a special economic zone to produce batteries and electric car vehicles. And we also understand that preliminary results of a pre-feasibility study were announced yesterday, confirming that the Democratic Republic of Congo and Zambia are the growth poles for the future of production of batteries and electric vehicles on the African continent. And so now the DRC is gearing up to take this initiative a step forward with the second DRC Africa Business Forum. Congratulations to the Democratic Republic of Congo and its government on these initiatives. So I'm now going to switch to French so we can speak to the President. If you need translation, you should have translation kits available to you next to your seat. Merci beaucoup, Monsieur le Président, pour votre soutien à GABI. Merci de nous honorer de votre présence aujourd'hui. C'est un honneur pour nous de vous accueillir ici.
C'est moi qui vous remercie.
Alors, Votre Excellence, 60% du bassin du Congo se trouve sur le territoire de la RDC, qui possède, on le sait tous, une richesse naturelle incroyable, mais qui est également confrontée à des défis, comme de nombreux pays africains. Donc, je voudrais tout d'abord savoir quelles initiatives votre gouvernement a mis en place pour maximiser le potentiel de ces ressources et pour que la population congolaise puisse profiter de ces ressources et pour que votre pays se développe encore plus.
Très bien. Merci beaucoup, Madame. Merci aux organisateurs pour cet honneur qu'ils me font et l'occasion qu'ils me donnent de pouvoir parler de mon pays, de ses atouts environnementaux et de ce que nous faisons. Tout d'abord, laissez-moi présenter ces atouts. La République démocratique du Congo, c'est 10% des forêts tropicales du monde. C'est 100 000 kilomètres carrés de tourbières. Ces plantations qui sont, ces végétations qui sont capables de séquestrer 1,5 milliard de tonnes de carbone par an. C'est un grand pays aux énormes atouts forestiers et qui demande la mobilisation des promesses qui ont été tenues au courant de toutes les COP que nous connaissons par les pays pollueurs. Mobilisation de ces ressources pour nous aider à bloquer la déforestation parce qu'aujourd'hui,
move us away from creative and economy together as a thing that we always have to talk about as Africans. Yes, money is important, but it's not just money. Our power also resides elsewhere.
Yeah, I would clap to you. That was great. So Moki, quick question. So you recently did a Creative Vibrancy Index, 12 cities across Africa. What did that tell you about the creative landscape on the continent?
Yeah, we did this index to actually try and figure out, we talk a lot about this creative economy and how important the creative industries are, but what is actually happening on the ground in terms of creativity? So what we did, we looked at sort of 3 areas. One was, creative economy, one was cultural vibrancy, and one was enabling environment. And we took the 12 cities and we looked at things like, for example, how many theaters are there? How many screens are there? I mean, apparently in America, there's something like 40,000 movie screens. In Africa, there's 1,000, right? So when you start thinking that we're trying to build a film industry, yeah, where are people going to watch it? You know, we're assuming everyone has television access to Netflix or Amazon. That's not the case in Africa. So we were looking at things like, you know, where do people actually consume cultural outputs? That's one. We're looking at the enabling environment. For example, where can people learn technical skills? You know, films, you know, I used to act, I know that there was 100 people on set. There would be like maybe 15, 20 actresses, and all the rest of those people are technical background people, project managers, technical people, to allow us to get that content out. Where are they getting their skills from, right? So we looked at things like that, and it showed us there really is an issue with where people are learning about creative, technical skills. And you refer to the word capacity building, and I'm actually going to tell you, I hate that word because that implies that, you know, we're doing something to help you. We're building your capacity. It's a very development speak. You know, you don't call New York Film Academy a capacity building school. It's not. They're teaching skills. That's what we need. We're teaching skills, and that's what we found. We need more technical skills, you know, to build the ecosystem. So when Burna Boy, you know, releases his album, he's recording everything in Africa, right? It's not doing it in America and then just selling to us. We should be more than a market. So the vibrancy index, I'll tell you which city was ranked top. It actually was Johannesburg across all three: enabling environment, creative economy, and cultural vibrancy. The second was Cairo, and third was Lagos. And Lagos was on there primarily because of Nollywood, because of its creative economy, because there was a lot of outputs, and there was like, you know, industry, there was trade, there was exchange with cultural products. And actually Cairo won overall for enabling environment.
Amazing. When you look at the landscape of the creative economy, I mean, it's like a buzzword, right? Everyone's talking about creative.
Happens. As an advocate for the sector, which is trying to bridge the gap in between talent financing and, of course, law, the legal side of things. What do you think? What policies? Thank you. What policies do you think we can have? What kind of policy makers do you think we can collaborate with? Or if you have any policy ideas that you can share, what do you have in mind for that?
From my side, like an artist, I was saying yesterday to my sister, who just have been talking to her guests, that in the artistical side, at the first point, we should be together. If we are divided, we are not strong. I just point my finger on, if like a musician, when I write a song, right now, it's not like it used to be. I want to share it with the rest of the world because the song have a meaning for my community, for my country, for my continent, but have a meaning for the rest of the planet also. So to be able to do that, I need to share the stage with all the people who are in the different field of the culture. She is stylist. She can make the clothes. She can choose the jewelries. She can choose the kind of images that we want to share with the rest of the world. Someone else can come and say, I can make the setup, for example, because everything have a meaning when it comes to the culture. But now it's not just the culture. It's me, Baba Mal, like musicians. It's the people, the Minister of Culture of Senegal, for example, or Mali, or somewhere else in Africa. It's the administration who should know that now we are talking business. Because whatever you do, you have to think about how to sell it and how to make a profit from it, to bring it back to help the creativity. Because it's really important to know that if you go so far into the business and leave behind the creativity, we will not be touching the soul of people. That we will not be able to do something that can stay forever and have a meaning. So to find the right balance between the creativity and the business itself is really important for Africa right now. But it's not, when it comes to the culture, it's not about the musicians, about the designers or the comedians. It's about everyone who think that culture and other part of our life, all of them have a meaning to make something really great to happen. We have all the elements to make Africa great Africa, a place that you can't stop the development, to make Africa the future. Everyone is saying Africa is the future. We have to make Africa the future.
I agree, and I believe the future is now. Who's with me on that? The future is now for Africa. I think I really love what you said, but I'm thinking of things from the perspective of creating something from nothing. And we're looking at the value chain of what a person like you talked about stylists, you talked about set design, the amount of, when it comes to